I'm going to go over 3 ways to wean your baby from night feedings. I know when I had a newborn and I was doing all this reading about baby sleep and sleep training, etc., they would reference weanings, but I didn't actually know what they meant. And so I'm going to go over 3 ways to do it. The first way is to go completely cold turkey, remove the feeding completely. This is going to be effective, but they are going to cry. And you may not want to do that. You don't actually have to. There are other ways to do it. But it is effective, and if you want to, it probably is the quickest way. And so if you need to wean them from a feeding quickly, like let's say maybe you're going on a trip and you don't want to worry about it, or they're going to go spend the night at their grandparents and you don't want the grandparents to have to worry about night feeding, this is a way to do it. The second way, which is probably more common, is to just gradually wean them from the feeding. And by reducing the amount of volume you give them of milk for the feeding. So for example, let's say you're giving the baby 4 ounces of milk at a typical feeding, you would, or a certain amount of time in the case of breastfeeding. So maybe if you're doing 15 minutes, you would go down to 10 minutes. If you're giving 4 ounces, you would go down to 3 ounces. And then you do that, maybe, I've heard you can do it in one night. We did it in like a few nights or a week, and then we'd reduce it even further. And then we'd go down to 3 ounces, and then 2 ounces, 1 ounce, and then hopefully by that point, they stop waking up for the feeding. And it can work. It may not work in all instances, especially if the baby's maybe a little bit older and they're not waking up so much for the milk, but out of habit or because of a sleep association with getting held or something, etc. It's possible they might still wake up, and you might have to go to the cold turkey method potentially. And then the third method I was going to talk about is not actually weaning, but it would have the same effect. And so for this method, you're going to gradually push out the time between each feeding. So let's say your kid is waking up at 2 a.m. You would go to them, you would hold them, swaddle them, carry them, rock them, sing to them, maybe give them a pacifier, change their diaper, etc. But importantly, do not feed them for an hour. And the idea is that after doing this for a couple of weeks, they're no longer going to wake up until that 5-hour mark, because that's what they've been trained to do. And I tried this with both of my children, and it did work. The study, they found, it was a small study, but they found that in the treatment group, that by 8 weeks of age, 100% of the babies were doing a 5-hour stretch. So 5 hours isn't, I think people probably want more than 5 hours, but still, if you're very sleep deprived, that could help for sure. And then I want to cover 2 other points. First is that I would only wean from 1 feeding at a time. I think you want them to get used to that, to reducing that 1 feeding first before you move on to any additional night feedings. And then the last point I want to cover is sort of when can you start weaning? And I don't think you're going to probably find a consistent answer in the medical community, but I will say from my own personal experience and from a lot of books and things that I've read, is that you can get kids to sleep 8 to 12 hours a night by 3 to 4 months old. And so in order to do that, you need to most likely wean them from night feedings. And so I would say probably in like the 8 to 12 week range, you can start weaning them from feedings, especially since if you do it more gradually, it might take a while to completely get rid of the feeding, and you're just trying to help them push some of their calories to other times of the day. So yeah, that's what I was going to cover in this video.